The sea had lost its color. Once, Daenerys remembered, the water had been warm and blue and gentle, slapping playfully at the hulls of fat merchantmen in Pentos Bay. Now it was a hard, iron thing that heaved and twisted beneath the keel like some offended god, green-black and flecked with white where the waves broke against themselves in endless war. The cold bit through her furs, found its way beneath leather and wool and silk and the hardened resolve she had wrapped around her heart. She stood at the prow regardless, one hand curled around the carved dragon's neck, chin lifted into the salt spray. Spray froze on her lashes. Before her, through driving mist, the promise of land loomed low and gray. Westeros, she told herself. Home, though she had never seen it. The thought should have brought warmth. Instead, only the wind answered. Regal shrieked above her, a high, rattling cry that was more frustration than fear. His green wings labored in the heavy air, droplets of sea mist trailing from the sharp curve of his pinions as he wheeled, then dove to skim the waves. Drogon flew higher, black against the bruise-colored clouds, fierce and unbothered, while pale Viserion clung closer to the ship, gliding from mast to mast like a ghost. "Easy," Daenerys murmured. Her words were swallowed by the gale, but the dragons felt the shape of her intent. "Soon. We will be ashore soon." Behind her, boots thudded on the deck. "Khaleesi," Ser Jorah called, his voice wrapped in a rough woolen cloak of its own. "You should be below. The wind cuts sharper here." "So do memories," she answered without turning. Beyond the bow, the mist thinned for a heartbeat, and she glimpsed land again. A smear of dark stone fringed in ice, and past it, a faint scatter of lights like distant stars fallen to earth. The sight tightened something in her chest that neither cold nor salt could reach. "Is that it?" "White Harbor," Jorah said, squinting past her shoulder. "Seat of House Manderly. They are Stark men, everyone. Or were, when last I heard songs of the place." He stepped closer, his beard crusted with salt, his bald scalp gleaming with meltwater where the hood had slipped back. "We are far north of where we meant to land. The storm drove us off course." The storm. She remembered little of it but noise. Thunder shattering the sky, the ship pitching side to side, Dothraki warriors, her brave Khalasar, retching and cursing the black water that carried them. She remembered clutching at the rail with both hands as Drogon screamed defiance into the wind, his fire hissing uselessly in the rain. For a moment then, she had been a girl again, a small thing dragged along by forces too vast for her to grasp. But that had passed. She would not be small again. "Stark men," she repeated, tasting the name. Ned Stark, whose death had set half this land on fire. The songs had reached even the manse in Pentos, even the shadowed corners of merchant palaces in Qohor and Myr. A northern lord who would not bend the knee to the boy king who sat his father's stolen throne. A man who had died with honor and blade both taken from him. "My father's enemies killed him, and they killed mine. They killed more than that," Jorah said. "If rumor speaks true," the North rose in answer. "Eddard Stark's son wears a king's crown now. King in the North, they call him." Daenerys drew a slow breath of air so cold it felt solid in her lungs. "Then we have come to a kingdom, not a province," she said. Her fingers stroked the carved dragon's head, worn smooth by long voyages and other hands. "Perhaps that is better." Jorah said nothing for a time. The ship rocked. Behind them, she heard the mutter of frightened men and women. A handful of Dothraki who had not deserted at the sight of the sea. A few freedmen who had chosen the risk of water over the certainty of chains. Sailors from Volantis and Lyssa who had followed Illyrio's gold. She had led them into this cold, unknown place. She could feel their eyes on her back. "You could still turn south," Jorah said at last. "Make for King's Landing. The narrow sea is not kind, but it is shorter than the long road overland from here." "I have 3 dragons," she said. "But I have no army, and no gold beyond what we carry in those chests below. The Lannisters sit the Iron Throne with both." She swallowed, tasting bitterness. "And the Starks are at war with them. You think to make common cause." "I think," Daenerys answered slowly, watching the distant harbor lights swell and multiply. That the world has grown used to dragons coming as conquerors. Perhaps they might come once as supplicants instead. The word sat strangely in her mouth. Supplicant. She, Daenerys Stormborn of House Targaryen, rightful queen of the Seven Kingdoms, begging alliance from a northern boy king who had never seen a dragon except in some nursemaid's tale. She would sooner bleed. Yet she had learned, since Drogo's pyre, that there were many ways to bleed. Drogon swooped low as if sensing her turmoil, black wings beating heavy air into froth as he crossed above the bow. The sailors shouted and ducked. The dragon's red eyes met hers, and something fierce and hot answered in her breast. "We go where we must," she whispered to him and to herself. "Fire does not choose its hearth, but it can choose what it will burn for." The mouth of the white knife swallowed them by slow degrees. As the ship pressed upriver, the world narrowed. Cliffs of hoary stone loomed close, their faces veined with frozen streams that glimmered like old silver in what little light pierced the clouds. Pines clung to ledges and crevices in scraggly ranks, bowed beneath the weight of clinging snow. Strange white birds wheeled overhead, their cries thin and sharp as shattered glass. The river itself moved sluggishly, shoulders crusted with ice that ground against the hull with agonized creaks. The Dothraki muttered darkly in their tongue, clutching at charms of horsehair and bone. Sea and snow had joined arms to confound them. There was no sky wide enough here for the world to make sense. Daenerys heard one of them, Rakaro or perhaps Jogo, spit over the side and name this place cursed. She could not say he was wrong, but curses and blessings were kin, she had learned. The same wind that froze the flesh could fill a sail. Ahead, the river bent, and suddenly the cliffs broke apart. Space opened like a wound, and there it was. White Harbor rose from the water like an old dream of Valyria, dragged north and drowned in snow. The walls were high and pale, not smooth like Dragonstone but blocky and immense, their foundations sunken deep in the river's throat. A great chain hung slack across the water, its iron links rimed with frost, watched over by squat towers adorned with banners bearing a merman with a trident. Beyond the walls, Daenerys glimpsed roofs and spires packed tight, serpents of smoke twisting upward, a hulking keep squatting near the river like a stone whale basking at the surface. At the harbor's mouth stood the gates. Great curving tusks of carved bone arched over the water, weathered smooth by wind and time. Whalebone, Yora had told her once, from beasts so massive they could swallow a ship whole. Here they had become a promise. You enter under the ribs of giants, and the sea's teeth cannot follow. "Docking!" a sailor bellowed in thick Myrish. His shout carried down the line of ships. Men scrambled. Ropes were hauled, sails dropped and furled. The river's current seized them, tugging them toward the waiting harbor, where smaller boats scurried like minnows around some great predator. On the quay, figures waited. Daenerys saw them as shapes at first, dark smudges against stone. As the ship drew nearer, they resolved into men and women wrapped in heavy cloaks, their breath turning white in the air. Steel glinted beneath fur whenever the wind toyed with a hem. Banners snapped. The Merman of Manderly, the dire wolf of Stark, and others she did not know. "Stark banners," she said, throat tightening. "Winterfell's men must guard the port," Yora said. "White Harbor is the North's only true city. Even a king in the North must mind his coin and his ships. And he will mind the dragons in his sky," Daenerys said. "Call them back to me. I will not have Drogon snatch some fisherman from the pier by mistake." Yora nodded and moved off, barking orders at a sailor who understood enough Low Valyrian to shout them again in the local tongue. Daenerys went to the rail instead, resting her hands on the cold wood as the quay rose toward her. For one heartbeat, she faltered. She had crossed a world for this. Left behind the red dunes of the Dothraki Sea, the perfumed halls of Qarth, the safety, such as it was, of being forgotten. Here, in this hard-mouthed harbor, Westeros waited. Not the soft, sunlit Westeros of Viserys stories, but something sterner, carved from ice and stone and stubbornness. Her brother would have strode down the gangplank as if to a coronation, sneer already on his lips. He would have demanded oaths, gold, armies. He would have died within the hour. Daenerys exhaled slowly, watching her breath fog in front of her, and thought of a house in the snow she had never seen. A lord with a long face and a longer sword, who had chosen honor over safety and died for it. Stark, they called him. Eddard Stark. She imagined him not as some looming enemy, but as a man standing in the falling snow, knowing the axe was coming and refusing to kneel for it. Perhaps I have more in common with him than with my own blood, she thought. It was a strange feeling. They came alongside the quay with a final groan and jolt. Ropes flew, caught, were hauled taut. The crew scrambled to secure the lines, stamping their feet against the cold. Dothraki edged toward the gangway as if approaching a pyre, hackles up, hands near the hilts of their araks. "Khaleesi," Yora said, returning to her side. "Will you go ashore first?" "Yes," she said. Her fingers found the familiar weight of the dragonbone hairpins at the back of her head, anchoring the loose silver coils that the wind had tried to claim. "I will not have them see my men quake and wonder if their queen quails too." Yora's mouth twitched, some emotion caught between pride and worry. "Then let them see a dragon." Daenerys lifted her chin. "No," she said. "Let them see a woman first." Snow met her as she set foot on Westerosi stone for the first time. Not a blizzard, not the howling storm she had half imagined, but a restless dance of flakes that stung her cheeks and melted in her hair, turning silver to pearl where they clung. The dock planks were slick beneath her boots, rimed with frost. The air smelled of fish and smoke and something iron-sharp and clean. The men awaiting her were tall, broad-shouldered, their faces weathered and largely bearded. They wore mail beneath thick wool, and over it, heavy cloaks fastened with brooches of silver and jade in the shape of mermen and wolves. Some had helms under their arms. Others had theirs on, casting dark shadows over narrowed eyes. None knelt. Good, she thought, oddly relieved. Let them not kneel too easily. Let them understand the weight of it when it comes. At their head stood a man so vast that for a moment Daenerys thought he wore furs atop furs. His cloak was green and white, lined with ermine, and his belly strained at the leather beneath. His beard was a froth of white, his eyes small and shrewd in a round, ruddy face. Fat, Viserys would have called him with contempt. Daenerys saw strength instead, of a different sort, the kind that piled up slowly, like snowdrifts, until it buried what stood in its way. He stepped forward with an effort, leaning on a cane carved with little leaping fish. "I am Wyman Manderly," he said, his voice deep and surprisingly smooth. "Lord of White Harbor, Warden of the Wolf's Den, bannerman to House Stark of Winterfell and to Robb Stark, King in the North." His gaze flicked over her, then up, to where the dragons watched from the ship's rail. "And you, I think, are not what I expected to see come gliding up my river." Daenerys had learned to play such games in Karth, in the halls of Piet Pri and Zarozoan Daxos, where every glance was a dagger and every word bore poison. But there was less guile here, or at least a different flavor to it, salted and weathered. She met his gaze evenly. "I am Daenerys of House Targaryen," she said. The words rang strange in this cold air, but they did not falter. "First of my name, rightful queen of the 7 kingdoms of Westeros, Khaleesi of the great grass sea. And a guest in your city, my lord, if you will have me so." Behind her, Yora shifted. One of the Dothraki snorted, muttering something about begging before strangers. She ignored them. Lord Manderly's brows twitched upward at her titles, but no mockery came. A murmur ran through the men behind him at the name she had claimed. Targaryen. She saw the shiver pass along the line the way a gust of wind moves over tall grass. Fear, curiosity, anger, she could not read which predominated. "A queen without a crown," Wyman Manderly said thoughtfully. "We have had our fill of such folk coming north of late." He scratched at his beard. "But you bring other proofs." His eyes flicked skyward again. Drogon hissed softly in answer, smoke drifting from his nostrils like an impatient sigh. Daenerys inclined her head. "Proof can be weighed," she said. "Stories can be heard. I come not with an army at my back, but with ships that have taken damage, men who need roofs and fires, and a wish to speak with your king." "My king is far from here," Manderly said, "but his mother's house is under my care, as is his city, and his laws, your grace, still hold." He tasted the honorific as if uncertain yet whether it would sit well. "We welcome guests who come in peace. We hang raiders. Which are you?" Winds from another lifetime brushed her cheek. Hot desert winds, carrying the smell of molten gold. Viserys laughing, then screaming. She remembered the way the Dothraki had looked at her when the metal cooled, the way they had smelled something new and dangerous in the air. "Your peace is mine if you will grant it," Daenerys said quietly. "I have no cause to raid your harbor. I came seeking a path, and it seems the storms of this land have chosen one for me." He studied her for a long moment. The men behind him shifted, boots scraping on stone. One of them, a younger man with a scar through his eyebrow, stared openly at the dragons, lips parted. Another marked the Dothraki with wary disdain, hand resting on the hilt of his sword. "Very well," Lord Wyman said at last. "We are not so poor in bread and ale that we must turn away a ship when winter sharpens its teeth. Your people will be given quarters in the fish market's old warehouses. You will be lodged in my guest wing at Newcastle." He paused, then added, "On your honor that your beasts will not burn my dockyards or eat my citizens." "On my honor," Daenerys promised. She glanced up to Drogon, felt his restless hunger like a new sun behind her eyes, and sent him a wordless pulse of command. The dragons shifted, grumbled, but did not leap. Manderly nodded once, sharply. "Then welcome to White Harbor, Daenerys of House Targaryen. May the seven, or whatever gods you keep, grant that you and ours do not come to quarrel. We have enough enemies to the south without making war upon the sky." They rode through the city like the heralds of some passage in an old tale. Not triumphant, not quite, but undeniable. Lord Manderly provided her a mare, a thick-furred creature with a coat the color of dirty cream and a temper like cold porridge. The horse disliked her dragons from the first, rolling its eyes and tossing its head whenever one of them swooped too low. Daenerys soothed it with clicks of her tongue and gentle pressure of her knees, earning wary respect from the groom who led it out. The streets of White Harbor were narrower than she had expected, walled on either side by tall, close-standing buildings of pale stone and gray timber. Snow lay in drifts against the walls, trampled to gray slush in the thoroughfares. Men and women moved aside as their party passed, flattening themselves against doorways, dipping clumsy bows or stiff curtsies as they caught sight of Manderly's green and white standard. Their eyes, though, did not rest on their lord. They stared at her. She heard the mutters, low and urgent, in a northern burr she could almost follow. "Silver hair, like in the stories. Look at them, gods, dragons, there be dragons." Children clung to their mother's skirts, faces pinched with cold and wonder. A boy no older than 8 trotted after them for 50 paces, looking up into the sky with his mouth open, until his father dragged him back by the collar. The dragons flew above, shadows on the low clouds, their shrieks rolling down between the chimney pots. Drogon ranged farthest, his black wings cutting clean shapes through the mist, but he kept returning to circle above her, a dark guardian. Regal and Viserion chased each other in loops and dives, occasionally startling flocks of pigeons into panicked flight. "Your people do not run," Daenerys observed. "In Qarth, many would have shut their doors. In Pentos, they would have prostrated themselves. Here, they stare." Lord Manderly grunted. "Northmen are less easily impressed than Qartheen, I think. We have the long night in our stories. Men who remember such tales do not fall over dead at the sight of a flying lizard." "Dragon," she corrected without heat. "We remember the long night as well across the sea, though perhaps less clearly." "Aye, well." He chewed on the word a moment, as if it were a tough piece of meat. "Stories say dragons came with the dawn after that dark. Some might see that as a good omen. His eyes crinkled slightly. Some might not. You, my lord. I see a great many things, Wyman Manderly said, and I count. I count ships and spears and bushels of grain, and sons buried, and sons yet living. I count what the North has lost in these last years. His face grew still, and what it might yet lose if we are unwise. Daenerys rode in silence for a time, listening. The city hummed around them. Smiths hammering in open-fronted forges, fishmongers crying their wares, the clack of loom weights from some upper window. It was not so grand as King's Landing must be, she imagined, but there was a solidity to it, a sense of having endured storms before. I know some of what you have lost, she said at last. News carries even across the narrow sea. Ned Stark, Eddard Stark, they say he was a good man. They say true. Manderly's voice roughened. We have had lords who were hard, and lords who were cruel. Winterfell's lord was neither. He was decent. That is rarer than a man might hope in these days. And his son wears a crown now. Wasn't one he asked for, Manderly said, but it fits him all the same. Daenerys pictured this Robb Stark as she had heard him described. Young, stern, with his father's long face and his direwolf at his heel. A king who had not set out to be one, but who had been crowned by grief and need. She wondered what he would see when he looked at her. A rival? A tool? A threat? Will he listen? She asked quietly. If you send word that a Targaryen queen has come to his shores with dragons, but not with war? Manderly shifted in his saddle. His horse, twice the size of hers and half again as surly, snorted steam. Love of the Starks runs deep in the north, your grace. We have bled for that house. Many would bleed again, if the king commanded it. But we are not sheep. We remember as well. Remember what? Burned fields for one, he said. The last Targaryen king to ride north brought fire with him. Not against us as such, but dragons do not burn neatly. Flames spread where they will. There are old men in these streets whose grandfathers grew up on tales of crops gone to ash and cattle blackened on the hoof. His gaze slid sideways toward her. Some of them might think it poor fortune that the dragons have found us again. Daenerys pressed her lips together, feeling the weight of inheritance settle on her shoulders like another fur cloak. She had never known Aegon the Conqueror, nor the kings who followed him. Yet their shadows lay long on this land, and she walked in them whether she chose to or not. I am not my father's, she said. No, Manderly agreed, nor am I mine. That is a comfort, and a warning. He drew in a breath that seemed to cost him some effort. We are nearly there. New Castle. He nodded toward a rise ahead, where the hulking shape she had seen from the river now loomed larger. It was uglier up close, she thought. A squat, square fortress of pale stone, its walls pocked and stained, its towers thick-waisted rather than graceful. But its gates were strong, and the men who stood upon its battlements looked as if they would stand there still after 3 days of siege and a week of snow. Ugly but enduring, like the north itself. Come, Lord Wyman said. Warmth and food, and talk. He gave her a long, considering look. You'll want to hear what has become of your enemies, your grace, and of those who might be your friends. Newcastle's great hall was no red keep. There were no golden chandeliers, no intricate mosaics underfoot, no columns of carved marble twining up toward painted ceilings. The pillars here were plain, thick trunks of timber braced against stone, their surfaces scarred by age and use. The rushes underfoot smelled faintly of damp straw and old beer. Smoke from the great hearth hung in the rafters, blurring the edges of banners that had seen too many summer moths and winter dust. Yet the fire was hot, and Daenerys's fingers had stopped aching from the cold by the time she wrapped them around a cup of spiced wine. It tasted thin and sour after the rich vintages of Essos, but the heat was a comfort all the same. She let it sit on her tongue, savoring the unfamiliar tang. They cut off his head in the square, Lord Manderly was saying, voice soft so that his words carried only as far as the high-backed chairs at their end of the table. Claimed treason. said he'd plotted with Robert's brothers to steal the boy's throne. The boy, she repeated. Joffrey Baratheon. That's the name he sits under. The old lord's mouth twisted. Whatever lies he was begot in. The phrase carried a hint, a bitter edge. Bastardy, incest, whispers she had heard from Illyrio's fat lips, murmured about the queen and her twin. To hear them echoed here gave them the taste of truth, or at least of widely shared belief. Your father sat that throne before him, Manderly went on, and his father before that, and his grandsire before that. Long line of silver hair and dragon fire, until it broke. His gaze rested on her, weighing, measuring. Some say it broke for good cause. Daenerys thought of stories Yora had told her, when she had pressed him for something beyond Viserys' frothing rants about usurpers and stolen crowns. Of wildfire in the streets, of a mad king laughing as he commanded that a city burn rather than be yielded, of her brother Rhaegar falling beneath the hammer of a crowned stag. Perhaps it did, she said softly. Madness deserves no throne. The admission tasted like ashes. But the crimes of the father are not the crimes of the daughter. No, Manderly's large fingers drummed once on the table. His other hand lay near a trencher of cold fish pies, of which he had eaten impressively. Nor the son. Ned Stark's boy wears a crown, but he did not ask the Lannisters to kill his father, and he did not draw first blood. You said the North rose, Daenerys prompted. Aye, the North and the Riverlands with it. Riverrun's Tullus are kin to the Starks. When Lord Eddard lost his head, his son marched, took back Moat Cailin with northern spears, broke the Westerlands' host in the Whispering Wood, took Jaime Lannister captive. Pride warmed the old man's voice. We named him king after that. The lords lifted him on their shoulders and swore him their swords. Robb Stark, king in the north, king of winter, some call him, to the old gods. And he marches still. We thought to end this war with a wedding, Manderly said, and his mouth turned down. Old Walder Frey offered his bridge and his swords, in trade for a royal marriage. Those plans changed. The king followed his heart, as boys will. His eyes flicked to her, sly. You know something of that, I think, Khaleesi. She thought of Khal Drogo, of his long braid and the weight of his hand on her hip, the way he had looked at her when the world narrowed to tent walls and firelight. Her throat tightened. The heart is a poor counselor in war, she said. Aye, Manderly sighed. Still, what's done is done. He rides now with less strength than he might, but with men who follow him for love as well as oath. That is not nothing. He peered at her over the rim of his cup. You learned of his father's death across the sea. Why come here? It was the question she had known would be asked. She set down her wine, lacing her hands together atop the table to keep them still. My brother spoke often of Westeros, she said, of our house's fall, of the usurper who stole our throne and butchered our kin. He dreamed of crossing the sea with a golden host and reclaiming what was ours. She let the ghost of Viserys fade with the words, he is dead. I am not. The dream changed. She glanced toward the far end of the hall, where the door to the inner courtyard stood seamed with cold. Outside, somewhere beyond the thick walls, her dragons prowled the night. I crossed because I grew tired of dreaming, Manderly grunted. Dreams are cheaper than ships, less dangerous too. Not mine, she murmured. He tilted his head, considering. So, you would make common cause with the boy who broke the power of the house that helped end your father's rule. I would speak with him, Daenerys said. I know what it is to lose a father to war. I know what it is to flee your home. Perhaps we have more to share than you think. Perhaps. Manderly folded his hands over his belly. His rings glittered in the firelight, little flashes of sea-green stone and pale pearl. The North is wary, your grace. We remember Targaryen dragons. But we remember Lannister lions too, and their teeth are buried deep in our flanks. If you come to help pull them out, his lips pursed. There will be some who see wisdom in that, and some who will not. Some who will say you are a new fire that will burn what little we have left, he agreed. They will ask why the dragon comes north, where there is little gold and less glory to be had, instead of flying straight to King's Landing to mock their banners. Because kingship without allies is a sword without a hilt, Daenerys said steadily. I am not blind, Lord Manderly. I know what I lack. Men, coin, understanding of this land beyond songs and whispers. The North has all three in some measure. I would sooner stand beside wolves than lions. His laugh was a rumble deep in his chest. Careful there. Wolves bite when cornered. So do dragons, he said, and for a moment their eyes met with a spark of something like shared mischief. Then it was gone, replaced by the weight of business again. I will send a raven, Manderly said, to Winterfell, to the king wherever his council judges best. I cannot promise how he will answer, but he is not his father, nor am I mine, and the boy I remember running through these halls with snow in his hair listened well, when wisdom spoke. Thank you, Daenerys said quietly. In another life, another tale, she might have demanded more. Here now, she understood that this was what could be had. And in the meantime, Wyman Manderly said, you will rest. Eat. See my city. Let my folk see you. This land is slow to trust, but it does not forget kindness, once it's measured it. Kindness, a rarer weapon than she had thought in the cities of Essos. Perhaps in this harsh land it cut deeper. The city changed as the day died. By late afternoon the snow had thickened, lazy flakes giving way to a steady fall that blurred edges and swallowed sound. White Harbor's bustle softened under its blanket. Carts creaked home on stiff wheels. Stalls shuddered one by one. Smoke from 100 chimneys rose straighter as the wind turned inward, circling through narrow streets to prowl at the eaves. Daenerys walked wrapped in one of the thick woolen cloaks Manderly's steward had sent to her chambers, its white fur collar brushing her jaw. The fabric scratched, but it held the warmth, and the weight made her feel anchored, solid. Beside her, Ser Jorah trudged, his own cloak already clotted with snow. Is this wise? He asked, for the third time. Lord Manderly offered you the safety of his hall. Walls make men comfortable, she said. Comfort makes them dream strange dreams about where queens belong. Let his people see me. Let them see that I am not some phantom in a high tower. And if some fool decides to test his courage with a thrown stone, they will see what follows as well, she replied. I do not think the Lord of White Harbor would thank them for that. Viserion ghosted after them, wings half furled, leaving scorched footprints where his claws touched ice. Children trailed in his wake at a distance determined by equal parts fear and fascination. One brave girl with a red scarf darted closer, then squealed and ran back when the dragon turned his pale head to look at her. Her laughter, high and bright, rang strangely in the cold air. The quays were lined with braziers now, iron baskets filled with fat wood and oil drift. Flames licked up from them, orange and gold, painting flickering paths across the snow. Men and women stopped their work to watch her pass. Some nodded, short and awkward. A few touched fingers to brow or breastbone in some local sign of respect. Many simply stared. She saw hunger in some faces, the lean, winter-hollowed look she remembered from the poorer streets of Pentos and Norvos. Here, though, there was less desperation than doggedness. These were people used to going without. Their eyes weighed her not for what she might give them, but for what she might cost. You could speak to them, Jorah murmured, as a knot of fishwives paused nearby, baskets on their hips, cheeks chapped raw by wind. Tell them why you are here. Daenerys thought of the Valyrian phrases her tutors had drilled into her, of the liquid, lilting tongues of Bravos and Lyssa, of the harsh, rolling speech of the Dothraki. Westerosi common came easier to her now than it once had, but its northern variant still caught her ear strangely. Yet a queen who would rule a land must learn its sounds. She stepped toward the fishwives. Viserion hissed softly but held his place. The women stiffened, clearly torn between the instinct to flee and the stubborn reluctance to yield ground. Good evening, Daenerys said, shaping the words carefully. I hope your day was good. One of them, a square-shouldered woman with arms like oars and a face graven with lines deeper than her years, blinked. "Cold," she said flatly. "Fish were biting, though. Could be worse." Her eyes flicked to Viserion. "Could be warmer if that thing sneezes." The others snorted, half laughter, half nerves. Daenerys smiled. "He is very warm," she agreed. "Sometimes too warm. But he will not harm you. Nor will I." The woman grunted. "That so? Then you're already one up on most powers that come calling on folk like us." She shifted her basket. "You mistress of the lizards, then?" "Daenerys," she said, "of House Targaryen." "That so?" The woman considered her, eyes narrowing. "We've had lords of this and that here, and king's men and taxmen, and once a sell-sail captain thought he was some kind of prince. All of them said they'd bring better days. Seems like better days keep getting lost on the road." "I have no coin to weigh your scales with yet," Daenerys said. Honesty here felt less like a weakness than like a necessity. "No ships to trade you, no southern grain to fill your larders. Only these." She glanced back. Through the falling snow, she glimpsed the dark shapes of Drogon and Regals circling above the rooftops. "And myself." The woman followed her gaze, then spat thoughtfully into the snow. "Could be worse," she said. "Could be you came with lions on your banners instead of beasts that fly. Lannister gold spends well, but it spends slow when it's counted out in corpses." She jerked her chin toward the dark water. "You don't burn our ships or our catch, and you pay for what you take, you're welcome enough. You go turning the place to cinders, though, we'll see what your lizards taste like in a pie." The threat was as much jest as not. Daenerys inclined her head. "I would not wish to offend your bakers." That one a proper laugh this time, rough and surprised. "You're a strange one," the woman said. "Stranger than the last lot, at any rate. We'll see what comes of you, dragon girl." She hitched her basket higher. "Come on, you lot. Fire's going, and I'll not have you catching sick standing about gaping." They moved on, boots crunching in snow, voices fading. Daenerys watched them go, an odd warmth settling low in her chest. "You see?" she murmured to Viserion, reaching to trail her fingers along the smooth ridge of his neck. "They are not so different. Men, women, they are the same from here to the Jade Sea. They fear, they hope, they eat, they hunt. They bury their dead." Her hand tightened. "They deserve more than to be turned to ash in another war between crowns." Viserion snorted, a curl of smoke drifting from his nostrils. His golden eyes, slit-pupilled and ancient, reflected the brazier's flames. "You would spare them if you can," Yora said quietly. "If I can," she agreed. "But the Lannisters would not spare me, nor my people, nor these." She nodded toward the shadowy figures moving through the GA. "They're dark. A fire that refuses to burn at need is no good to anyone." Night in White Harbor came early and without ceremony. One moment the sky was a bleak, washed-out gray. The next, it had sunk into blue-black, and the world below seemed to fold in on itself, boundaries drawn by lamplight and memory. Daenerys stood upon the ramparts of Newcastle, her cloak drawn tight against the wind. The stones beneath her boots were slick with refrozen melt, polished by the passage of countless feet. Overhead, Drogon clung to the parapet, talons sunk into the ancient mortar. His wings were half spread, catching flakes of snow, which hissed and vanished on contact with his scaled hide. The river rolled dark and slow beneath, its surface a broken mirror reflecting the wavering gleam of lanterns and braziers along the quays. Beyond lay the shadowed bulk of the city, roofs hunched under their white burden, streets traced in faint lines of light where hearth glow leaked through shutters. It was not the view she had imagined as a girl, listening to Viserys speak of the Seven Kingdoms. He had painted King's Landing for her in lurid colors, red roofs and golden domes, the great sept gleaming under a sun that seemed always to shine. Even in her own half-formed hopes, Westeros had been a place of green fields and gentle rivers, of warm stone and warmer welcomes. This was harder, sharper, but there was a kind of austere beauty to it, too. The North did not pretend. It showed its bones. "How long, I wonder," she murmured, more to herself than to Drogon. "Before they decide what to make of me." The castle was quieter now. Lord Manderly had withdrawn some hours past, his bulk borne away by 2 loyal retainers after he had dispatched his ravens. She had watched one of them go, the black shape winging out into the night, a small, determined blot against the snow. Bears messages to Winterfell and perhaps to the king at war as well. Her name, her dragons, doubled in scratches of ink and carried on fragile wings through the storm. It seemed a tenuous thing on which to hang her future. "Do you think they will call us?" she asked Drogon softly. "Or will they bid us go?" The dragon tilted his head, regarding her with one great crimson eye. In its depths, fire moved. She could feel the heat of his breath, see it plume in faint whirls. He had grown, she realized suddenly. In the press of days at sea, in the constant strain of survival, she had not taken time to measure him against herself. Now, perched on the parapet, he was longer than a warhorse. His wings, when fully spread, could have cast shade over the entire walkway. "Too big to hide," she whispered. "Too loud to ignore." She thought of Robb Stark, far away. A boy king, yes, but a king all the same, with victories to his name and lords sworn to his cause. How would he read the raven's tale? A potential ally fallen unexpectedly from the sky? A rival claimant whose presence would complicate his war? Or something more frightening still? A reminder that the world was wider and stranger than banners and blood feuds? What would she see if their positions were reversed? If she held the North, and word came that a stranger had landed upon her shores with fire at her command? The truth tightened around her like a noose. "I would not trust me," she said half aloud. "Not without proof." Proof of what? Of her intentions? Words could be shaped into any pattern one liked. Of her restraint? She was not certain yet that she knew its limits herself. Of her difference from the madmen whose blood she shared? The wind shifted, carrying with it a smell that was not smoke or sea salt. Cold, sharper than the air around it, tinged with something sickly sweet, like flowers left too long on a grave. It made the little hairs on the back of her neck stand on end. Drogon hissed, a low, thrumming sound, and lifted his head, nostrils flaring. "What is it?" Daenerys asked, frowning. The city lay unchanged below. Braziers burned. Men moved, little pinpricks of motion in the dark. Snow fell. She closed her eyes. In Qarth, they had called her Mother of Dragons and Dreamer both. The House of the Undying had left its marks on her, though she hated to admit it. Since that cursed vision-haunted tower, sleep had never been simple. Sometimes, when she let go of waking, she fell not into rest, but into other things. Corridors of memory, glimpses of futures that might never unfold, worlds a knife's edge away from hers. Now, standing awake upon a northern wall, she felt something similar brush at the edges of her mind. A cold wind that was not the night's wind. A whisper that had no voice. Snow underfoot. Darker snow than this, trampled and stained. She saw a field, long and wide, with broken spears jutting from the drifts. Men lay scattered like discarded dolls, eyes open and rimed with frost. Above them, a figure rode, tall and pale and crowned with ice. Its eyes were blue, not like the placid blue of the summer sea, but like the heart of some frozen fire. As it turned its head, she felt those eyes find her, though she was not there. Her breath hitched. The vision, or whatever it was, shattered. "Khaleesi!" Yora's voice, from somewhere behind her. Footsteps on stone. "You should come in. You'll freeze out here." She opened her eyes. The world returned in its proper colors. Blacks and grays and the yellow-orange of firelight below. The strange, sweet cold scent dissipated like breath on glass. Drogon rumbled once, then settled, folding his wings more tightly around himself. "I am not frozen yet," she said, turning to look at Yora over her shoulder. "Have you been sent to fetch me, or do you come of your own accord?" "Both, perhaps." He drew his cloak tighter. Snow dusted his beard, and his nose was reddening in the cold. The servants wonder that you do not demand more comfort. They are used to lords and ladies who cling to the fire. I am not used to fires that do not need feeding, she said. In Qarth, every comfort concealed a knife. Is difficult to lay aside such lessons. She hesitated. Do you believe in cold dreams, Yora? He frowned. There are tales in the north, he said slowly, of things that walk on 2 legs without breath, and on 4 with eyes like coins of ice. My father spoke of them as stories for long winter nights. But then, my father never thought he'd see dragons again either. His gaze shifted to Drogon looming above them. What have you dreamed? She looked back out over the city, over the dark line of the river heading inland toward lands she had never walked. Snow, she said, and death that would make even your hard men shiver, and something in it that smells of endings. Her hand found the parapet, fingers splaying against the cold stone. If such things are more than children's tales, Yora, then this War of Crowns is a game played at the edge of a cliff. He said quietly, but men will still play it, even as the rocks crumble underfoot. That is our way. Then perhaps dragons can teach them another, she said. Her chambers in Newcastle were small by the standards of Pentos and Qarth, but larger than any room she had possessed as a child. The bed was narrow but sturdy, piled with furs. The hearth was little more than a blackened hole in the wall, but it held a cheerful blaze. The window was a slit cut into the stone, shutters lined with oiled hide to keep the worst of the wind at bay. On the table lay a map of the north, inked in black and blue on stiff, yellowing parchment. Yora had produced it from his own meager stores with a kind of grim pride. I had hoped to show you this from the back of a horse, he had said, not from a position of guests. He made the last word sound like cages. Daenerys traced the lines with the tip of one finger. White Harbor, marked with a neat little tower and an inked anchor, the white knife curling up into the belly of the land like a serpent. Further inland, smaller marks, Barrowton, Torrance Square, Deepwood Motte. And north and west of all, the symbol Yora had tapped twice. A wolf's head, inked darker than the rest. Winterfell, he had said, heart of the north, Robb Stark's seat, even if the war keeps him from it. Now, alone save for Regal's slow, rasping breaths by the fire, she lingered on that symbol. The wolf's snout pointed northward, toward rougher, less detailed scribbles labeled merely the gift and, above a hard line inked in deeper blue, the lands beyond the wall. A blank expanse, peppered with tiny mountains and skulls where some scribe's fancy had taken him. She thought of her dream, or whatever it had been, upon the wall, of eyes like shards of northern sky in a face that did not belong to any man. She thought of the cold that had crept through her bones even as Drogon's warmth pressed at her back. In Essos, dangers had come garbed in silk and steel, in poison and contracts and the knives of the Khalene's lurking rivals. They had been human dangers, born of greed and pride and fear. This felt older, rawer. If there truly is such a thing, she murmured, then these petty wars are foolishness. Regal shifted, one eye slitting open. His scales were deep green, laced with bronze. Firelight played along them in ripples. Do dragons dream? She asked him softly. When you twitch in your sleep, are you chasing goats in your mind, or something more? He yawned, showing rows of needle teeth, and gave no answer. There was a knock at the door, light, hesitant. Enter, Daenerys said. A girl squeezed through the gap, clutching a folded bundle of cloth. She could not have seen more than 13 or 14 name days. Her hair was a pale brown, braided simply. Her cheeks were pink with cold. She bobbed a quick curtsy, nearly stumbling. My lady, she said. Your grace, Regal hissed, but only in Daenerys's mind. The dragon did not speak, of course, but sometimes her thoughts supplied what she imagined he might say. You may call me Daenerys, she told the girl gently. What is your name? Lyssa, my lady. Lyssa Snow. The last word came out quickly, as if she wished to get it over with. Snow, the bastard name of the north. Daenerys nodded. Lyssa Snow, you serve in Lord Manderly's household. In the kitchens, my lady, and sometimes here when there are guests. She held out the bundle of cloth. The maester had this made ready. He says it will keep the northern winds from freezing your bones. Daenerys accepted the bundle, unfolding it. Inside lay a garment of thicker, smoother wool than the cloak she wore, dyed a deep, dark gray. The cut was simple but well made, with a high collar and sleeves lined in soft fur. Along the hem, in small, careful stitches of white thread, someone had embroidered a row of tiny dragons, 3 heads curling back on themselves. "Who did this?" she asked. Lyssa's cheeks colored. "I, my lady, I thought you might like something of your own upon you, not just our colors." Daenerys ran her thumb over the little dragons. The stitches were not perfect, but they were precise, each curve and scale rendered with earnest care. "I do like it," she said. "Very much. Thank you." The girl fidgeted. Her eyes kept darting toward Regal, then away again. "Is it true, my lady, that you cannot be burned?" "So they say," Daenerys replied. The truth of it still unsettled her sometimes, when she pressed fingers to unscarred skin and remembered the heat of Drogo's pyre. "Why do you ask?" Lyssa swallowed. "The old women say the last dragon queen burned a man alive who displeased her. They say she laughed." Daenerys's stomach tightened. "My father," she thought, or his father, or some other Targaryen whose cruelties had been folded into one monstrous figure in the telling. "Do you believe everything the old women say?" she asked. "No, my lady." The answer came quickly, with a flash of resentment. "They say bastards are cursed, that we bring ill luck to any house we serve. My Lord Manderly does not seem cursed, only a very large." Her mouth twitched, then smoothed. "But they also say winter is coming, and that is true enough." "Winter comes for all," Daenerys said. "Bastards and queens alike." She folded the garment more tightly. "Tell them this if they speak of burning men. Tell them I have traveled far, and I have seen enough death by fire that I need not add to it for sport." Lyssa nodded, eyes wide. "Yes, my lady." She hesitated. "Is it also true that you might help the king in the north?" Daenerys blinked. "You know of that? Servants hear things." The girl's chin lifted. "My father fought for Lord Stark before he died of fever. He said the Starks keep the north standing upright. If you help the king, that must be good, mustn't it?" Daenerys thought of Robb Stark again, a face she did not know, framed now by the hope in this child's eyes. A king not just of lords and banners, but of bastards in kitchens too. "If the king wishes my help," she said slowly, "I will give. As best I can." Lyssa smiled. It was like a crack in ice letting sunlight through. "Then I will pray that he does, my lady. To the old gods and the new." She bobbed another curtsy and fled, as if afraid that if she tarried she might see something she ought not. Regal snorted, a curl of smoke drifting from his nostrils. Daenerys looked down at the little embroidered dragons, then back at the map, at the wolf's head inked bold upon it. "Wolves and dragons," she murmured. "And snows between." They gathered in what Lord Manderly's steward called the solar, though there was little sun to be had. The chamber was narrow and long, with a single tall window that looked out over the inner yard. By day, gray light seeped in around its shutters. By night, candles and a single iron candelabrum wrestled shadows into uneasy truces in the corners. Daenerys stood at the map table once more. This time it bore not only the north, but all of the 7 kingdoms. The Reach's fertile fields, the jagged stormlands, the baked ochre of Dorne, the green-flecked vale. And there, like a stain, the Westerlands, with its sigil of a golden lion roaring over Casterly Rock. "Their minds go deep," Yora was saying, his finger resting on that spot. "Gold enough to pay 10 armies, and then pay 10 more to bury the first 10's bones. So long as Tywin Lannister draws breath, his house is not as weak as it might seem, even with his son in chains and his grandson on the throne. Perhaps that is why this Robb Stark has not marched on King's Landing, said Quay, one of the blood riders who had remained with her. He spoke the common tongue reluctantly, his accent thick as fermented mare's milk. He fights where he can win, burns their fields, steals their herds, like any good call. This is not the Dothraki Sea, Yora said. Here, winter can bury your own herds as effectively as a Lannister spear. Missandei stood near the window, small hands clasped before her. Her eyes tracked the movement of the others' fingers across the map, the shifting currents of their hopes and fears. She had spoken little since they came ashore, content to listen, to learn the strange cadences of Westerosi speech. Daenerys felt all their eyes turn to her, even when they did not move. They waited for her to choose a path as if paths could be plucked from the air. "We are not marching anywhere," she said. "Not yet. We have too few men, too little food. Winter hangs on this land like a wolf on a wounded deer. To move now would be to die." "You have dragons," Quay said stubbornly. She met his gaze. "Do you think dragons eat air? Or that they never tire? Even they have limits, and they cannot hold castles or pass out bread to starving men." He subsided, though unwillingly. "Lord Manderly has ships," Yora said, "and loyal men, if he were to swear fully to your cause." "He is sworn to the Starks," Daenerys said, "and through them to this king in the north. I will not ask him to break that oath when I come to him as guest." The word still sat oddly. "If I betray the first bond one make in this land, why should any other trust me? So you would submit yourself to this boy?" Yora's lip curled faintly, though whether at the concept or at his own choice of word, she could not tell. "Consent to be his sword, his pet dragon, while he wears the crown that should sit upon your head? The crown that sits in King's Landing belongs to neither of us," Daenerys said. "Not truly. It is a stolen thing. What sits upon my head now is made of snow and questions. I will answer those before I reach for gold." "You are the last dragon," Quay said. "You should not bow." "Perhaps dragons should learn how," she said quietly. "At least once." Silence followed that. It was not comfortable, but it was honest. Missandei spoke at last, her voice low and precise. "In Noth, my queen, there is a tale of the butterfly god who saved our people. It is said that he once folded his bright wings and walked among men as a lowly servant, to learn their hearts. He humbled himself, and then he chose which to save, and which to let the fever take. Humility does not diminish power, clarifies it." Yora snorted softly. "We are a long way from Noth. Not so far as we are from Valyria," Missandei said. Her gaze met Daenerys's. "But dragons yet live." Daenerys drew a breath that tasted of tallow and old stone. She looked down at the map again, at the wolf head in the north, the lion in the west, the crowned stag in the crownlands, the red and black of her own house inked over Dragonstone. "I crossed the sea not to repeat my brother's madness," she said. "He wanted to take a kingdom with threats and tantrums and the promise of a crown he had never earned. I will not do the same. If the North is to stand beside me when I move against the Lannisters, if I move against them, then let it be because they have chosen me, not because I have forced their hand." "And if they do not choose you?" Yora asked. Daenerys's hand closed into a fist over the lion sigil. "Then I will know that when the dragons fly over King's Landing, these people, at least, did not ask for that fire." She opened her hand again, forcing her fingers to loosen. "Send no more messages for now. We wait." "For how long?" Quay demanded. "As long as it takes," she said. "Winter taught patience to this land. It can teach it to me as well." The raven's wings beat a steady rhythm against the night. From the courtyard below the rookery, Daenerys watched it rise, a dark fleck against the snow, then vanish into the swirling whiteness beyond the castle's walls. It carried with it a small scrap of parchment marked with Lord Manderly's rounded hand, and beneath his words, a space where she had added only her name. Daenerys of House Targaryen. No titles, No claims. Let him hear me as I am, she thought. Not as the world has named me. Around her, the courtyard's life went on. Stable boys led in steaming horses, their flanks dark with sweat. A pair of kitchen maids hurried past with baskets of stale bread for the kennels. A guardsman stamped his feet and blew on his hands between one circuit of the walls and the next. Snow softened the edges of it all, blurring the lines between one shape and another. Best get inside, your grace. One of Manderly's men called from the gatehouse, his voice carrying only slightly above the wind. Storms blowing in from the bay. She glanced toward the river. The air had taken on a different quality, thicker, heavier. Clouds pressed low, pregnant with more snow. The city's usual odors, fish, smoke, humanity, were muted under the impending weight of weather. In a moment, she said, she could not chase the raven, nor hasten its flight. She could not shape Robb Stark's thoughts from here with anything but the faint pressure of her own resolve. The waiting sat ill with her, but she had learned enough of the world to know that not all battles were fought with steel or flame. Some were fought with endurance, with the willingness to stand still while others rushed past. Drogon came then, a shadow over the courtyard, his wings stirring the snow into brief flurries. He landed heavily atop the low wall bordering the yard, claws scraping stone, tail lashing a little trench into a drift. Men flinched, then forced themselves to stillness. Daenerys felt an odd pride in them for that. The dragon lowered his massive head until one crimson eye was level with hers. For a heartbeat, they regarded one another. "You do not like this either," she said. "This stillness, this waiting to be judged." He flicked his tongue once, tasting the air, then huffed, a warm gust of air that melted snowflakes around her. "I brought us here," she told him, "across the sea through the storm. I chose this cold harbor over a straight path to King's Landing. I chose to kneel, at least in words, before a king whose blood is not mine. If I have erred," her voice trailed off. There was no answer to that yet. A memory surfaced unbidden. Her standing in the red waste, body weaker with each step, refusing to lay down and die as her brother would have done. Of Cartha's glittering lies. Of the pyre where Drogo burned, and the eggs cracked, and she had walked into fire and found herself remade on the other side. "You were born there," she said to Drogon, "in a place where nothing should have lived. You and your brothers. Perhaps this is the same. A mad place to plant hope. A harsh soil. But if you can live here," the dragon's pupils narrowed briefly, then widened again. Snowflakes landed on his snout and hissed. He shook his head, casting them off, and spread his wings as if impatient with the ground. "Go then," she said. "Hunt, fly, have what freedom I have denied myself." He launched himself skyward in a rush of wind and snow, a black shape swallowed quickly by the night. From some vantage point on the walls, a guard cursed softly, awed despite himself. Daenerys watched until he was gone, then turned toward the keep. The north had taken her in. Warily, conditionally, but it had not spat her back into the sea. A raven winged its way toward a boy king with her name in its claws. Somewhere beyond snow and distance, old powers moved. Lions sharpening their claws, stags stamping the ground. Things colder and older than either shifting in the darkness beyond the wall. She drew her cloak tighter around her shoulders and stepped back into the warmth of New Castle, carrying with her the chill of the courtyard and the knowledge that whatever answer came, she had already begun to bind herself to this land. Fire had chosen its hearth. Now it remained to see whether the wolves would let it burn beside them, or whether they would bare their teeth and drive it back into the night. The candlelight made the ink look fresh. Robb Stark held the scrap of parchment between thumb and forefinger, careful not to smudge the words. The wax seal had already been broken, a green merman upon white, and the maester's script within was firm, rounded, unmistakably Wyman Manderly's. At the bottom, where the old lord had signed his own name, another had been added in a smaller, more deliberate hand. Daenerys of House Targaryen. The name sat in his mind like a stone dropped into still water. He read it again as if it might change. My lord, Great John Umber rumbled from near the tent's entrance. You mean to stand there all night staring at that scrap? Or will you share this southern jest with the rest of us? It's not a jest, said Catelyn Stark quietly. She stood at Robb's left, her lined face drawn tighter than usual with tiredness. The years had sharpened her grief into something finer, less wild but more cutting. Lord Manderly's hand is plain. He would not waste a raven on japes while winter hunts at his door. Then what? Demanded Rickard Karstark, leaning on the table with both fists. More bad news from the twins? Has the Fry decided he wants all our heads gift-wrapped before he lets us cross his bloody bridge again? No, Robb said. His voice came out rougher than he intended. He cleared his throat. Nothing from the phrase. This is something else. He laid the parchment flat on the map, between the little carved lion that marked the last known Lannister host and the wolf that marked his own. Lord Manderly writes that a queen has come to White Harbor, by ship, with dragons. Silence fell like a dropped cloak. The tent's canvas walls breathed in and out with the wind. The torches hissed faintly. Somewhere beyond, a horse whickered. Dragons? Repeated the Great John, his tone hovering between disbelief and hungry delight, as in, great flapping beasts that breathe fire and shit ruin? Those dragons. The very same Lord Umber, said Maester Wyman, who had brought the raven. He was a slight man, his chain glinting at his throat, his hair receding from a high, thoughtful brow. The descriptions Manderly gives fit what we know from the chronicles. Scaled bodies, wings, fire. 3 of them by his count. 1 black, 1 green, 1 pale as cream. 3, muttered Edmure Tully from the far side of the table, where he had been studying the positions along the Red Fork. He looked up now, eyes wide. 7 save us. 1 was enough for your namesake, Robb. This is some mummer's tale. Yet the ravens bring it all the same, Catelyn said. Her gaze flicked to the lower edge of the parchment, to that second name. And they bring her. Robb followed her eyes. Daenerys of House Targaryen. The last of them, if half the stories were true. The daughter of the Mad King who had burned Rickard Stark alive and strangled Brandon with his own sword while their father watched. The sister of Rhaegar Targaryen, who had run off with Lyanna Stark and set a kingdom to bleeding. His hand curled unconsciously into a fist. She asks for audience, he said. With me or with any who can speak for the North. She claims she comes in peace, that she seeks understanding. The word felt foreign in his mouth. A Targaryen seeking understanding, Karstark snarled. Your grandfather died in her father's fire. Your uncle choked himself trying to reach him. I lost 2 sons at the Whispering Wood to win you your crown, your grace. And now a dragon comes sniffing at our shores, and we're to nod and smile and call it good fortune. She landed in your uncle's lands, Great John pointed out. Not in the south, not among her old cronies, but in White Harbor. That counts for something. Storms drove her there, Lord Umber, Catelyn said. So Lord Manderly writes. Fate, not design. Storm or not. She didn't turn tail and run when she saw the direwolf banners. Greatjon's grin showed a line of broken teeth. That speaks to a certain courage. Or madness, Karstark muttered. The Blackfish had been silent until now. Arms folded, blue eyes narrowed. Brynden Tully straightened, the leather of his jerkin creaking softly. Manderly suggests what? He asked. That you invite her north? That you bend the knee to Dragonfire? Or that you make common cause against the lions? Robb smoothed the parchment again. His fingers had left a faint crease. He suggests only that she is there, that she has come with men in need of food and shelter, that she has, so far, been a courteous, and that she wishes to swear no war against the North. Karstark spat onto the packed earth. She'll say anything, with her back to the sea and wolves on the Quay. Perhaps, Robb said. Perhaps not. He felt his mother's eyes on him, weighing warning. He remembered the first time he had seen a lion banner burn. The way satisfaction had surged hot in his chest like a second heartbeat. He remembered, 2. The sound of his father's head falling. And if she comes with fire enough to melt half the Lannisters' gold, Great John said slowly, you'd send her away? Robb looked down at the little carved pieces on the map. Wolves and lions, trout and krakens. They seemed like toys suddenly, set out by a child on a board he did not fully understand. I don't know, he said honestly. Not yet. They moved from the tent to the hall, where stone walls held in the heat more surely than canvas ever could. Riverrun's great hall had once seemed vast to Robb, when he was a boy visiting his mother's kin. Now it felt smaller, hemmed in by troubles that reached from the Trident to the sea. The table they used for councils was an old thing of river oak, scarred with dozens of forgotten feasts. In its center, the map waited. The wolf head carved for the north sat near the neck, a bit of old bone polished smooth by countless hands. Closer to it than before now stood a little wooden tower newly placed. White Harbor, marked by Maester Wyman's careful fingers. Lord Manderly says he has given them quarters, the Maester repeated, to those who had not heard it in the tent. Her people are lodged in the fish market's empty warehouses. She in his guest chambers at Newcastle. Soft welcome for hard guests, Karstark growled. Do you doubt Wyman Manderly's loyalty? Catelyn asked. Her tone was mild, but Robb heard the steel beneath. Karstark's jaw tightened. I doubt anyone's, these days, who thinks we can sup with dragons and not get burned. We dined with Freys, Edmure said under his breath. Perhaps we've had practice. Catelyn shot him a look that said this is not the time. He subsided. Brynden Tully leaned over the table, tapping White Harbor with one finger. Whatever else we may say, this is a fact. A power our enemies do not control has landed in a port that flies your banners. The lions have not yet had time to sink their claws into this particular beast. That alone is worth consideration. Great John said. Think of it, boy. 3 dragons. Fly 'em over Lannister lines. Cook their pretty knights in their steel shells like crabs in a pot. Do that once and we'd not see their banners on this map again. And when she's done cooking lions, Karstark said bitterly, what then? She flies south and bakes Tyrells? Turns her fire on the Smallfolk who don't bend the knee fast enough? That's what her kin did. All of them, Robb asked, surprising himself. Every Targaryen who ever sat a throne was mad and cruel? Karstark hesitated. Enough of them were. Enough Starks have been stubborn fools, Catelyn said softly. Enough Tullys have been weak. Enough Freys have been faithless. Yet we do not assume each child born to those houses will be the worst of their blood. We wait, we watch, we judge. She is not a child, Karstark said. She is a queen, she says. Queens don't get the luxury of waiting to be judged. Their first step sets many feet in motion. Robb listened to them argue, their words a weave of caution and possibility. Part of him wanted to seize on Greatjon's vision. Dragons leaping from winter skies, turning golden lions to slag. Another part recoiled, remembering the stories old Nan had told around Winterfell's hearth. Dragons hunched on towers, their shadows falling long over fields gone to blackened stubble. He wished, fiercely, that his father were here. What would he do? He asked aloud, before he could stop himself. Catelyn's head snapped toward him. For a moment some old hurt flickered in her eyes, then smoothed. Eddard Stark would listen, she said. He would bring the woman north, see her with his own eyes, weigh her in his own heart. He would not trust the word of any lord, no matter how loyal, where dragons are concerned. Brynden nodded. Your mother speaks true. Your father mistrusted distant judgments. He liked to look a man in the face. A woman, Great John corrected, grinning. And what a woman, if half these tales are true. Karstark bristled. You'd have him bring a Targaryen into Winterfell? Into the very heart of the north? I would have him know his enemy, Brynden said. Or his ally. We do not yet know which she will prove. Robb straightened slowly. The weight of the crown on his brow was mostly in memory here. He did not wear it in war councils. Still, he felt it settle now, an unseen band of iron pressing down. If she is enemy, we are better knowing it soon, he said. If she is ally, we are fools to send her from our shores. The North is not so rich in friends that we can afford to toss one back to sea when she comes unbidden. Karstark's mouth tightened, but he did not speak. I will go north, Robb said. The decision surprised him even as he voiced it, but once the words were out they felt right. To Winterfell. I will meet her there, under my own roof, beneath our God's eyes. If she means doom for us, let me see it plain. If she means aid, I will know that too. You would leave the war? Edmure exclaimed. I would leave you to hold this line, Robb said. You and Uncle Brynden and Lord Karstark and the rest. The Lannisters are licking their wounds. Winter presses from the east. There will be few great movements in the next weeks. I can spare that time. I cannot spare ignorance. Catelyn studied him, something like reluctant pride threading through her worry. You will not go alone, she said. No, Robb agreed. I will take a small guard. The Great John, a handful of my best men. Grey Wind. He lifted his hand. Under the table, the great direwolf thumped his tail as if understanding. The North will see its king come home, and it will see the Dragon Queen as well. Dawn bled slowly into the eastern sky, pale and reluctant. Mist lay thick over the tumblestone, the river's rushing muted, its spray frozen along the banks in delicate, glimmering fringes. The air smelled of water and cold iron. Robb stood on the parapet, his cloak pulled close, his breath ghosting in front of him. Grey Wind padded restlessly at his side, nose lifting to test the currents. Below, the courtyard was a murmur of activity. Men saddling horses, tightening straps, calling to one another in the clipped tones of those who had done this too many times to waste words. Catelyn came to stand beside him. She wore no cloak, only a plain woolen dress and a shawl, her hands tucked into her sleeves. You will catch your death, he said automatically. She glanced at him, small smile faint on her lips. My death will come when it is meant to, she said, whether I wear fur or silk or nothing at all. Do not borrow it early on my account. You have enough on your mind. He let the jab pass. It was gentle as her rebukes went. There will be those who say this is folly, she went on, voice quiet. That you abandon your men when they need you. That you leave the field to chase after stories. They already say worse, Robb said wryly. That I broke faith with the phrase. That I married for love, not duty. That I crowned myself king when all I had ever wanted was to be my father's son. And are they wrong? She asked. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. The mist swirled below, hiding the river. I did marry for love, he said, and for duty both. I could not ask Jane to bear the shame of what I had done and then set her aside like a cloak. I crowned myself because the lords put me on their shoulders and shouted until the walls shook. And because the Lannisters left us no other choice. That is not what I asked, Catelyn said. Then ask plainly, mother. She looked out over the river, where ravens winged low, black smudges against the white. Do you go north now because it is wise? She asked softly. Or because your heart longs for home, and this queen is the excuse it needs? The question struck him in a tender place. He felt Winterfell like an ache in his bones. The smell of the hot pools rising in steam from the Godswood, the rasp of his practice sword against brands, the sound of Arya's laughter as she tumbled in the yard. He had not seen those stones in what felt like a lifetime. Sometimes, in the hours before dawn, he woke with the taste of snowmelt on his tongue and the certainty that he was 16 again, about to ride south with his father. I go because it is both, he said after a long moment. Because the North has been ruled all these months by a boy who is not there. Because the people who lift their heads at the sound of my name deserve to see the man who wears it. And because if a dragon has truly come to my shores, I had best look it in the eye before it chooses its own path. Catelyn's throat worked. Her hand, pale and thin, came up to grip the cold stone of the parapet. When I was a girl, she said, I would sit in Riverrun's hall and listen to the singers tell of Aegon's coming. How he flew over Harrenhal while the towers melted. How whole hosts broke at the sight of his shadow. I used to have nightmares of fire falling from a clear sky. She bowed her head. I never thought my son would speak of meeting such power, as if it were another minor lord to be won to our cause. Robb swallowed. If she comes to burn us, he said, meeting her will not stop her. But if she does not, if she comes seeking what we seek, a world where lions do not feast on the dead of wolves and trouts, then sending her away because of old songs would be cowardice. Catelyn's eyes closed briefly. You are your father's son, she said, for good or ill. She opened them again and fixed him with a look that brooked no argument. Take men you trust. Avoid the twins. Do not linger where Walder Frey can see your back. And remember, dragons do not come without a price. Be sure you know what she asks before you give her anything. He nodded. I will. And Robb? She added as he turned to go. He paused. Do not let her see you as a boy, his mother said. You are a king. If she would stand beside you, she must see that. He almost laughed at that. He felt, in that moment, very much like a boy indeed, standing on his uncle's wall in borrowed mail, about to ride into something no song had prepared him for. But he only said, I will try, and went down to the yard, where Grey Wind's low growl greeted him like an oath. The Kingsroad was less a road than a memory of one this far north. Once, Daenerys imagined, it had been a proud artery, the lifeline that tied king to vassal, stone to stone. She could see the bones of it still, the hint of old cobbles beneath the churned snow, the straightness of its course as it cut through hills and patches of dark pine. Now winter gnawed at it. Drifts swallowed its edges. In some stretches, only the packed tracks of carts and hooves marked where men had passed. Lord Manderly wheezed softly in the saddle beside her, though he bore the travel better than she would have thought. He had insisted on accompanying her himself, flanked by a leaner nephew and a dozen of his best horsemen. Behind them clattered a smaller tail of her own people, Yora, Kovaro, and a scattering of other Dothraki, Missandei wrapped like a bundle of laundry in furs atop a shaggy pony, and a wagon carrying what remained of their provisions. Above, the dragons flew. They liked this land better than the sea, Daenerys thought. There was sky enough here, even with the low clouds pressing down, and prey that knew how to run. The first time Drogon had plunged into a snow-laden copse and risen again with a screaming white-tailed deer in his claws, the Manderly men had nearly bolted. Now they only watched warily, hands hovering near their sword hilts out of habit rather than panic. See how they move, Wyman Manderly puffed, following her gaze. Like crows that learned they were meant to be kings. He shook his head. 7 save us from proud creatures. Would you have them grovel? Daenerys asked. I'd have them know where not to shit, he muttered, but there was less bite to it than before. He rode in silence for a while, then added, the raven from Winterfell was prompt. It had come the morning after she had watched Manderly's bird vanish into the snow, her sleep fractured by strange dreams of wolves and burning hands. The reply had been brief, its ink fresh and dark. Robb Stark, king in the north, would come to Winterfell. He would receive her there as guest. He would hear her words beneath his own roof. He had not signed with flourishes. The letters of his name were plain, almost blunt. Yet there was an assurance to the hand, a steadiness that spoke of someone who had long since learned to write in armor. It pleased you? Manderly asked, watching her out of the corner of his eye. It surprised me, Daenerys admitted. I thought he might send some lesser lord, or invite me to meet him nearer the fighting, but he chooses to come home. He was raised to duty, Manderly said. Too much of it, some might say. The boy loved his father. To sit in Winterfell without Ned Stark. It will hurt. He shifted his weight in the saddle, the leather creaking. Perhaps he wishes to share that hurt with the one whose bloodline did for him. If he comes only to cast my father's shadow over me, she said, he will find that it falls shorter than he thinks. Manderly grunted. He comes because he must, he said. If a queen with dragons lands in your ports and you ignore her, you are more fool than king. She thought of that, of necessity as much as choice, as they rode through the slow, grinding miles. The land rose and fell gently, hills swelling under snow like the backs of sleeping beasts. They passed the occasional farmstead, smoke curling from squat chimneys, small folk watching from doorways as the column tramped by. Children pointed, their shouts muffled by scarves wrapped around their mouths, when Regal swooped low enough for them to see the sun burn on his scales. At one such place, a girl no older than Lyssa Snow stood outside with a basket of frozen turnips in her arms. Her nose was red, her hands bare. When Daenerys reined in to ask if she might buy a few, the girl blinked and said, "We have little enough, my lady, but if you're for Winterfell, the lady there never turned folk away in need. Be a poor thing if we did, when the king's on the road." "Your lady?" Daenerys asked, exchanging a glance with Manderly. The girl hesitated. "Old Nan says she's a ghost now, but I saw her once when I was small. Walked these same roads in a gray cloak, talking to the men like they were brothers." Catelyn Stark. Her eyes moved to the dragons overhead. "You going to help them?" "I hope so," Daenerys said. The girl nodded once, as if this answered something deep in her, and pressed the basket into Daenerys' hands. "Then take these," she said. "We'll dig more." Manderly paid her father twice over, ignoring the man's stammered protests. As they rode on, Daenerys held the weight of the turnips in her hands longer than necessary, the rough skins cold and real against her palms. They came upon the shrine near midday, when the snow had eased to a light, drifting veil and the sky had brightened to a color that almost earned the name blue. It crouched beside the road where a little copse of birch and pine leaned inward, their branches interlaced. A ring of stones, half buried in snow, marked its boundary. Within, a single weirwood stump jutted from the earth, its cloven top smoothed by years and weather. The carved face upon it had no eyes. Those had long since rotted out or been taken by crows. Only the remnants of its features remained. A faint line for a mouth, a worn suggestion of a nose, the ghost of something like sorrow in the plains of the wood. Manderly's men dismounted without being told. Some knelt in the snow, touching 2 fingers to their brows and then to the stump. Others only bowed their heads. There was no priest, no offering beyond a few withered berries and a crust of bread left in a hollow, now frozen solid. "The old gods," Daenerys said quietly. She had seen their faces once before, years ago, in a grove outside Braavos, a smuggler's shrine, hidden from the eyes of the faith. Those had been full trees, their red leaves whispering in a wind that seemed to speak secrets. This was only a stump, but the sense of watching presence was the same. "You keep other gods, I know," Manderly said. His breath steamed in the cold air. "Lawler, some call him, the Lord of Light. There's talk he's walked these lands too, through red-robed women and men with burning eyes." He shook his head. "But this is ours, older, quieter." Daenerys slid from the saddle. The snow crunched under her boots. Regal's shadow passed darkly over the shrine, and for a moment she thought she saw the wood's worn mouth twist. In the red waste, she had prayed to anything that might be listening. The mother, the father, the warrior, the crone, the stranger. Old gods and new, forgotten gods and those yet to be born. She had stood in the pyre's heat and felt something answer her. Whether that something had been a god, or only the truth that lived in her blood, she did not know. Missandei watched her from her pony, wide-eyed. Yora frowned, as if uncertain whether this was wise. Daenerys ignored both. She stepped into the circle of stones and knelt before the weirwood stump. The cold seeped through her furs, biting her knees, but she did not shift. "I do not know your names," she murmured, feeling faintly foolish. "I do not know if you hear those who are not of your land. I am Daenerys Targaryen. My people burned your forests once. My kin flew over your snows and called them theirs. If you remember that and hate me for it, I cannot blame you." The wind sighed through the birches. "But I have come here not to claim," she went on, "but to ask. I have seen something in dreams, snow and death, and a cold that is more than winter. If it is only my fear, then I will bear it alone. If it is a shadow of something that walks your woods," her throat tightened, "then help me stand against it. Help me keep these men and women from becoming bones in that dark." She reached out and laid her palm flat against the carved face. The wood was surprisingly warm beneath the thin crust of frost, as if it held some of summer still locked within its grain. Her vision swam. For a heartbeat, she was no longer kneeling in snow. She was standing in a grove of red leaves, their color deeper than any blood. The air tasted of earth and rain and the iron tang of old sorrows. A dire wolf watched her from between the trunks, its eyes the color of a winter sky just before dusk. Behind it, something else moved. A flicker of black wings, a flare of fire that did not burn the trees. Then it was gone. She was on her knees again, palm pressed to rough wood, breath coming fast. "Khaleesi," Yora's voice, close. "Are you well?" She rose slowly, brushing snow from her cloak. "I am," she said. "Just dizzy." She glanced back at the stump. The worn mouth seemed, if anything, a fraction softer. "Let us go. Winterfell waits." Robb had forgotten how the Kingsroad felt under his horse's hooves. The Riverrun's roads had been mud and blood for so long now that he had begun to think of travel as a matter of slogging through knee-deep misery. The Pact, snow-slick stones of the north were a different hardship. The cold bit deeper, the wind cut sharper, but the land felt familiar. Even where he had never ridden before, some part of him knew the rhythm of these hills, the way the birches leaned, the smell of pine and distant ice. Beside him, the Great John rode with his usual exuberant disregard for weather, his beard caked with frost, his cloak flung half open. "Ha!" he bellowed as they crested a rise and the land swept out before them in a white, rolling sea. "There's a sight to put marrow back in a man. I was beginning to drown in all that southern muck." Behind them, a dozen hand-picked men followed. Stout Umber riders, a pair of Karstark spearmen, Daisy Mormont in her bear-marked surcoat, a contingent of Stark guards from among those who had marched south with him. He had left the bulk of his host at Riverrun under Bryndon's eye. The river wolf would not let the lions cross the Trident easily. Gray wind ranged ahead, a gray blur against the snow, pausing now and then to nose at drifted scents. The direwolf's presence soothed Robb in some deep, wordless way. It was a piece of Winterfell that no war could strip from him. "Do you think she's pretty?" one of the younger riders muttered behind him, barely audible over the wind. "The Dragon Queen? Pretty?" snorted another. "She's got dragons, you idiot. She could be a hag with 3 noses and men would still write songs." "They say she's young," a third put in, "and that her hair is silver as new snow, and that she walked through fire without burning." Pause. "That part's probably horse shit, though." Robb let their talk wash over him, not bothering to rebuke it. Men would speak. Better they chatter about impossible queens than stew silently in their own fears. He remembered how rumors had run through the camp after word of his marriage had spread. How those whispers had curdled into something sharp in Karstark's eyes. Catelyn's warning echoed in him. "Do not let her see you as a boy." He had not felt like a boy in a long time, yet riding home like this, snowflakes catching in his hair, he could almost taste the years rolling back. If he closed his eyes, he could imagine he was only going to Winterfell for the harvest feast, with his father riding ahead and Bran at his side, pestering him about swordplay. He opened them again before the ache grew too much. Near dusk of the second day, as they made camp in a shallow hollow sheltered by a stand of pines, one of the outriders came cantering back, face flushed, breath steaming. "Your Grace," he called. "There's talk up ahead from a merchant caravan out of White Harbor. Says the Dragon Queen and Lord Manderly's train passed this way yestermorn. Bound for Winterfell." Robb stilled in the act of loosening his horse's girth. "How many with her?" "A score, maybe. Less. And 3 beasts in the sky. One of the mules bolted when it saw them. Took half a bale of wool with it, the man says." The rider's eyes shone. "He swears the largest was black as a crow's wing and big as a house." Daisy Mormont snorted. "Men always add a story to their houses when they tell tales." "Big enough," the rider insisted. He said the sound of its wings shook the snow from the trees. Robb pictured it, a shadow sliding across the white, wolves and men alike looking up. Fear, yes. Awe. But perhaps something else, too. Hope, if he could kindle it. "She rides ahead of you," Great John said. "That's bold. Coming deeper into the north without having seen your face." "Or desperate," Daisy observed. "She has nowhere else to go." Robb looked into the dark between the trees, where the night gathered. Somewhere out there, perhaps only a day's ride away, a woman out of songs was making her own camp beneath the same stars. He wondered if she felt the land under her as he did, or if all this cold was only foreign cruelty to her. "Double the watches," he said. "If the sky's to be full of dragons, I'd rather we see them coming than feel them land on our tents." The first glimpse of Winterfell came when Daenerys' thighs were numb with cold and her fingers ached from gripping the reins. The land had been gently climbing for hours, the hills growing rounder, the trees thicker, the snow deeper. She had begun to think that the whole world was composed of nothing but shades of white and brown and the occasional streak of dragon shadow. Then they crested a ridge, and there it was. Winterfell squatted in the hollow beyond like some ancient beast curled around its own warmth. Its walls rose in concentric rings of dark stone, smoke coiling from countless chimneys. The outer curtain bristled with towers, square, round, squat, tall, each with its own character, as if generations had added to them without ever erasing what came before. Within, Daenerys glimpsed the hint of inner keeps, the sparkle of water that did not steam, the black shapes of crows circling. But it was the other smoke that caught her breath. Not the gray plumes of wood fires, but the pale, ghostly mist rising from within the very heart of the castle, thicker and more constant. It steamed up from the Godswood, where dark pines and the white limbs of a great Weirwood reached over a hot spring's surface, the warmth of the earth itself bleeding into the frozen air. She had never seen such a thing. Dragons were heat-given flesh. Here, the land itself breathed warmth. No wonder the North clung to this place like a wolf to its den. "That," Wyman Manderly said with satisfaction, "is a sight worth freezing your arse for, is it not?" "It is." Daenerys searched for a word that did not sound like flattery. "Old," he laughed, wheezing. "Aye, older than any of us, that's certain. They say the first stones were laid by Bran the Builder, in the days when giants still walked and the wall was young." She thought of the House of the Undying, of visions of a ruined hall with a roof torn open and snow drifting through, of a man with dark hair and gray eyes, his cloak stained with blood, standing in front of a carved stone seat. She had not known then what she was seeing. Standing here now, she felt a shiver that was not entirely due to the cold. Drogon swept low over the ridge, his shadow falling briefly across her face. The Manderly men muttered, some crossing themselves in the southern fashion, others touching fingers to brows in the northern. Regal and Viserion followed in his wake, their cries mingling in the thin air. "Best call them to heel," Manderly said. "Stark men are less likely to loose arrows at you if their walls aren't suddenly sprouting claw marks." Daenerys lifted a hand. It was not a grand gesture, merely the raising of fingers, the flick of a wrist, but the dragons felt it. Drogon banked, circling back toward her. He landed on a rocky outcrop a little down the slope, folding his wings with a rustling snap. Regal and Viserion settled on either side, like living gargoyles. She dismounted, boots sinking into the snow, and walked to them. Drogon's head lowered, his breath gusting hot over her face. For a heartbeat she pressed her brow to his scaled snout, feeling the hardness of him, the coiled strength. "This is not our sky," she whispered to him. "Not yet. Remember that." His pupils narrowed, then widened. He snorted, but did not take flight again. She turned back to Winterfell. The gates were small from this distance, but she could see movement upon the walls. Tiny figures, like dark stitches on pale cloth. Banners fluttered. The gray direwolf on white, snapping in the wind. Fear pricked her, sudden and sharp. Essos had been full of dangers, but they had been dangers she had learned to read. Merchants' greed, warlocks' cunning, slavers' hunger. This was something else. A land that had lost much, watching her with old, cold eyes. "Do not let them smell it," she murmured to herself. "You are a dragon. You have walked through fire. You will not shiver before stone." She mounted again. The column moved forward, hooves crunching on snow, wagon wheels creaking. As they descended toward the castle, the salty tang of the sea faded entirely, replaced by the clean, sharp scent of pine and hot stone and smoke. Missandei leaned close in the saddle, voice barely above a whisper. "You have seen it in your visions?" "I have seen something," Daenerys said. "A hall, a chair, a man with a wolf's face. And now you will see if the man matches the vision," Missandei said. "Or if the gods are liars." Daenerys did not answer. The walls of Winterfell grew larger with each step, filling her sight. The gates of Winterfell opened with a grinding of old iron. The portcullis rattled up, snow dusting from its teeth. They passed under the battlements, hooves ringing briefly on stone before sinking again into the packed, trodden slush of the courtyard beyond. Heat struck Daenerys like a physical thing, unexpected in this frozen place. It rose from vents in the ground, from the open mouths of forges, from the great central kitchen where smoke poured from chimneys. Men in stark gray and the colors of lesser houses moved briskly between stables and armory and hall, their breath steaming as much from exertion as from cold. They stopped to stare. Her column rode in at a walk. Manderly's green and white banner dipped. Daenerys kept her back straight, her hands steady on the reins. Behind her, Yora's jaw was set, his eyes scanning the walls for any hint of hostility. Kavaro's hand rested on his arak. Missandei sat very still, wide eyes taking in everything at once. Above, Drogon, Regal, and Viserion circled once, then chose perches on the higher towers. Drogon clung to a jut of stone near the broken tower, his tail coiling around its base. His shadow fell long across the yard. Men flinched when it touched them, then stilled, forcing themselves to face it. A horn sounded, short and low. Daenerys turned her head toward the inner gate just as it opened to admit another party. They were fewer in number, but there was something decisive in the way they rode. At their head was a young man with a face she knew and did not know. Long, stark-boned, his jaw shadowed with beard, his hair brown and shaggy beneath a fur-lined cloak. A brooch shaped like a snarling direwolf clasped the cloak at his shoulder. Beside his horse loped a great gray wolf, its head nearly level with the man's knee. Robb Stark, she thought, king in the north. He saw the dragons first. Some part of her marked the way his shoulders tightened, the brief flare of his nostrils. Gray Wind's lips peeled back in a silent snarl, hackles lifting. Then the king's gaze dropped to her. Their eyes met across the churned snow of the courtyard. He was younger than she had expected, older too. The contradiction sat strangely in her. His face still held the softness of youth in places, the curve of his cheek, the fullness of his mouth, but his eyes had seen battle. They were the gray of winter rivers, restless, wary, carrying depths she doubted he had time to examine. She slid from the saddle before anyone could move to help her. The cold bit into her knees again, but she barely felt it. She walked forward, the distance between them shrinking with each step. Manderly came at her shoulder, breathing harder, but keeping pace. Robb dismounted as well. His movement was quick, practiced, his hand resting briefly on his sword hilt as if to remind himself it was there. Gray Wind padded close, fur bristling, eyes locked on the dragons overhead. For a moment, no one spoke. The courtyard held its breath. Even the dragons seemed to quiet, their wings drawing in, their serpentine necks bending as they watched. Then Robb Stark stepped forward and bowed, the motion short but unmistakably respectful. "Daenerys of House Targaryen," he said. His voice was lower than she had expected, steady. "Winterfell welcomes you. I am Robb Stark, King in the North." "Your Grace," she said, inclining her head in turn. She did not kneel, neither did he. "I thank you for your welcome. I had thought—" She let herself smile just a fraction. "I had thought you might send a steward." "I could hardly do that," he said. "You bring dragons to my gates. It would be poor courtesy to greet them with anything less than a king." A murmur rippled through the gathered men. Some recognized the jest in it and relaxed, fractionally. Others did not. "I came as a guest," she said, "not as a conqueror. If dragons have made your men uneasy, I can command them to keep to the skies." His gaze flicked up to where Drogon's black shape hunched amid stone, then back to her. "If they mean us no harm, they are welcome to whatever perch they find," he said. "This castle has seen worse things on its walls. Dragons are not things," she said mildly. "No," he agreed, "nor are wolves." Their eyes held for a moment longer. There was something there she had not expected. Not hostility, exactly, but a wariness that did not set her teeth on edge. It was the caution of a man who had learned too quickly what trust cost, not the prejudice of someone looking only at her name. Manderly cleared his throat. "Your Graces," he wheezed, "if I may suggest, the courtyard is no place for talk that matters. The wind has no loyalty, and ears grow where you least expect them." Robb glanced around as if waking from a brief, shared trance. He said, "Come. We'll go to the Great Hall. There's a fire and bread, an ale that doesn't taste entirely of horse piss." A faint smile touched his mouth. "You've had enough of the latter on the road, I imagine." "I have drunk worse," Daenerys said, "but I will not refuse better." He gestured, and the crowd parted. As they walked toward the hall side by side, gray wind padded between them, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him through her furs. Above, Drogon rumbled, a low sound that might have been a warning or approval. Winterfell's great hall was smaller than the one in Daenerys' vision and fuller. In the House of the Undying, she had seen a ruined space, its roof torn and open, snow drifting through, a throne of stone and a dead silence. Here, the rafters were whole, hung with banners faded by time but intact. The long fires down the center blazed hot, filling the room with the smells of wood smoke, roasting meat, and damp wool steaming. Men's voices murmured along the benches. The clink of cups and the scrape of knives on trenchers underpinned it all. At the high table, Robb Stark sat in the central chair, a wooden thing carved with wolves and antlers. To his right, Catelyn Stark. Pale, composed, her red hair threaded with more gray than Daenerys remembered from the vision, but her presence no less keen. To his left sat an empty chair, waiting for her. She took it when he gestured for her to do so, the eyes of the hall like a physical weight on her skin. Her own people had been seated further down, Yora stiff-backed and alert, Missandei small and watchful, Cavarro suspicious of the indoor space and the unfamiliar customs. Lord Manderly had squeezed himself in among his northern peers with grim determination and an appetite that paid no mind to diplomacy. "Winterfell has not hosted a queen in many years," Catelyn said, once the first wave of food had gone out and the hall had settled into that odd lull between hunger and the second bout of drinking. "We are out of practice." "Nor have I been hosted by such a place," Daenerys replied. She took a bite of the venison before her, savoring the rich, gamey flavor. "It is different from the palaces of Essos." "That is one way to put it," Robb said dryly. "We lack marble floors and golden ceilings. But the stones keep us warm, and the walls have stood 1,000 years. I'll take that over prettiness." "Stone burns," she said. "I have seen it." He stilled. For a heartbeat, his knuckles whitened on the stem of his cup. "My father saw it too," he said. "The day your king decided he would rather watch a city burn than surrender it." "My king," she echoed softly. "Not my father, and not mine." She met his gaze. "I make no excuse for Aerys Targaryen. If I had power then, I would have stopped him. You cannot know that, Karstark said from lower down the table, unable to keep silent. No, she agreed, surprising him. I cannot, but I know this. I have seen cities burn too. Astapor, Meereen. She thought of the slavers' pyramids, of chains broken, of blood on hot sand. I lit those fires. I would not do the same here, not unless I had no other choice. And what would make it your only choice? Catelyn asked quietly. Daenerys did not look away. The dead walking, she said, cold that eats the marrow from bones. A darkness that will not stop at your walls but will roll over all of Westeros. That is what I have seen. In visions, in dreams, in places where the world is thin. Silence spread outward from the high table in ripples. Men who had not been listening now turned their heads. The crackle of the hearth filled the space where their words might have gone. Robb's eyes narrowed. Our maester calls such tales children's stories, he said slowly. Of the long night, of others with eyes like ice. He says they are ghosts used to frighten men into remembering that winter kills. Your maester has not stood on a wall of old stone and felt something watching from beyond it, Daenerys said. I have. Across the sea we spoke of such things too. We laughed at them. I do not laugh any longer. Visions, Karstark scoffed. Dragons, Great John murmured. Visions. Seems to me the gods have begun flinging all their old stories into our laps at once. Would be rude not to pay some heed. Catelyn's fingers tightened on the rim of her cup. My sons dreamed of things that came true, she said quietly. Bran most of all. Of a crow with 3 eyes that spoke in riddles. I dismissed them as a mother does, until they stopped. Pain flickered across her face and was mastered. Perhaps it is foolish to ignore what the world whispers, when it has begun to shout. Robb studied Daenerys. In his gaze she saw calculation, mistrust, curiosity, a flicker of something like recognition. He too had been forced to grow into a role he had not sought. They were both, in their own ways, last children of broken houses. You came here asking for understanding, he said at last. You have spoken of dreams and dead men and fires across the sea. But there is something you have not yet said. He leaned forward slightly. What do you want from the north? There it was. The question that mattered. Daenerys sat very still. Her dragons moved in the rafters, shifting their weight, making the shadows dance. She thought of the Iron Throne, a seat made of melted swords, heavy and ugly. She thought of her brother's dreams of conquest, of her own long hunger to see the place she had been born. I want... She stopped, surprised by the shape of the desire that rose in her now. I want a place to stand, she said slowly. I want a house that is not built on bones. I want allies who will not turn their cloaks for the first purse of gold tossed their way. I want to see the Lannisters answer for what they have done, to your house and to mine. Her voice sharpened. I want to stop a darkness that will not care how our banners looked when we were alive. And I want to do all this without burning the world to ash. The hall listened. And for that, she finished, I would swear myself to a king who shares those wants, if he will have such an oath. The Godswood of Winterfell was larger than any garden she had ever seen. By day, its tall pines and ancient oaks closed around a steaming pool that sent up coils of mist. At night, under a thin moon, it looked like another world. The snow lay in soft drifts between the trees, untouched save for the tracks of small animals and the faint, deep prints of the direwolf who paced ahead. The air smelled of earth and water and the faint, metallic tang of sap. At the center stood the heart tree. It was larger than the stump she had touched by the Kingsroad, larger than any weirwood she had seen in Bravos. Its trunk was pale as bone, its limbs twisting like the arms of an old man reaching up to some absent sky. Red leaves rattled softly, though there was barely a hint of wind. The carved face in its bark watched them approach with eyes that dripped dried sap the color of blood. Robb Stark walked at her side. He had left his crown in the hall. Here, under his god's eyes, he wore only a simple cloak and his sword. gray wind padded before him, silvered by moonlight. The direwolf sniffed at the air, then settled himself near the pool, gaze never leaving the dragons. For they had come as well. Drogon lurked in the shadows beyond the ring of trees, his eyes twin coals. Regal perched on a low branch, the wood groaning faintly under his weight, his green scales mottled in the dim light. Viserion lay coiled near the warm water, his pale body steaming where the mist touched him. Felt, Daenerys thought, like a meeting of old powers. Not the preening, jeweled pretenders of Qarth, but something older and less impressed with itself. "You asked for this," Robb said. His breath smoked in the cold. "To speak here, not in the hall." "Yes," she said. "If I am to speak of oaths, I would rather do so where yours are born." He glanced at her, the ghost of a wry smile touching his mouth. "You've learned quickly." "I have had much practice," she said. "Too much." They stopped before the heart tree. For a moment neither spoke. The face in the bark seemed to regard them both, its carved mouth turned down, its eyes dark hollows that nonetheless felt filled. "I was not there," Robb said abruptly. "When your father died, when mine died, I was here thinking, foolishly, that the world would stay as it was until I had finished being a boy." His hand flexed once at his side. "I have spent every day since paying for that mistake." "You were a son," she said, "not a god." "Neither are you," he replied, "nor are your dragons." He lifted his gaze to Drogo's hulking shape. "If I accept what you offer, if I let you tie your fate to mine, and mine to yours, I must know this. When the day comes that you want something the North cannot give, will you burn us for it?" She thought of Dragonstone, of the Iron Throne, of ships gliding up the Blackwater under crimson sails. She thought of Smallfolk in their thousands, of children staring up at dragons with fear and wonder, of the choice to rule with terror or something harder. "No," she said, "if you hold to your word, I will not break mine. I have seen enough cities burn. I will not make your home another." He looked for some time into her face, as if searching for cracks where falsehood might peek through. The Godswood was very quiet. Even the usual night sounds, the creak of branches, the rustle of small creatures, seemed to have paused. "Say it then," he said finally. "Say what you wish to swear, and know that if you lie, my gods will remember, even if yours do not." Daenerys stepped forward until she stood almost at the heart tree's roots. The bark was close enough that she could see every cut of the carving, every vein of sap, every knotted knot where a branch had once been. She knelt, the snow soaked through her cloak, chilling her knees. She bowed her head, not to Robb but to the silent face in the wood. "I am Daenerys of House Targaryen," she said clearly. Her voice did not tremble. "Born in Dragonstone on a storm's night, last daughter of a line that burned this land as often as it ruled it. Mother of dragons, breaker of chains. I have walked through fire and seen what waits in the dark beyond the world." She lifted her head. Her eyes met the heart trees, then slid to Robb's. "I swear," she said, and felt each word settle into the air like a stone dropped into deep water. "By whatever gods hear me, by your old ones, and by the ones across the sea who watch through flame, that I will not raise my dragons against the North. I will not take your crowns or your castles or your people by right of fear. I will fight beside you against those who would see your house fall, whether they sit Lannister thrones or creep from winter's shadows. I will keep this oath until my death, unless you break faith with me first." She inhaled. The air tasted of sap and smoke and something wild. "In return," she said, "I ask only this. When I call upon you to stand with me against those who made orphans of us both, to end their reign, to break their chains, you will answer. Not as subjects, as allies." Silence followed. Her knees ached. A trickle of melted snow slid down her shin. Somewhere overhead, Regal shifted, scales rasping softly against bark. Then Robb stepped forward. He did not kneel. He laid his hand instead upon the rough bark of the heart tree, fingers splayed. Gray wind rose, padding closer, his fur brushing Robb's leg. "I am Robb of House Stark," he said, son of Eddard and Catelyn, king in the north and of the Trident by the will of my lords. I have seen my father's blood spilled for another's madness. I have seen my friends die for my crown. I do not take oaths lightly. His gaze found hers, steady and hard and strangely young. I hear your words, Daenerys of House Targaryen, he said, and I accept them. I will not ask the North to bow to Dragonfire, but I will ask it to stand beside it when the time comes. He drew a breath, his chest rising. I swear by the old gods and the new that if you hold to your oath, so will I. When you call me to face the men who murdered my father and set this kingdom to bleeding, I will answer myself and with whatever strength the North can spare, so long as it does not leave our people naked to winter. I will treat you as ally, not as subject. And I will judge your house by your deeds, not your name. The heart tree creaked. Sap glistened like fresh blood at the corner of its carved eye. A wind moved through the Godswood then, sudden and sharp, setting the red leaves whispering, touched her cheek like a cold hand. Somewhere in the dark, Drogon hissed, a sound that might have been challenge or acknowledgement. Rhaegal's tail lashed once. Viserion pale head lifted, nostrils flaring. Daenerys rose. Snow clung to the hems of her cloak. Her knees felt stiff, but something in her chest had eased, as if a band had been cut. Then it is done, she said. Robb nodded once. It is done. They stood there a moment, two figures before an old tree, a direwolf and 3 dragons watching from the shadows. For the first time since she had set foot on Northern Stone, Daenerys did not feel entirely like a stranger. She felt balanced. Not safe, that would be foolish, but less alone. Above them, beyond the reach of branches, the night sky stretched cold and uncaring. Somewhere far to the north, in lands neither of them had yet seen, other eyes opened. But for now, in this Godswood, ice and fire had spoken, and something new had been born in the space between their words.